We don't normally do a third episode during basketball because Bill and I are on Sunday. I was scheduled to do Friday after the draft. That's what we've decided to do the last couple of years because it made more sense. And then it didn't make any sense because the Milwaukee Bucks lost to the Miami Heat. We could battle headline here and go, the Miami Heat beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, 8 seed taken out of 1. It doesn't happen very often, and it happened here in 5 games. So there's a lot to get to. And yeah, I'm still a little stunned. It feels a bit like when you're really young, let's say younger, college roommates. Yeah, so not crazy young, but just sort of young. And you're piecing it together the next day, and you're like, wait, didn't Dave? And you're like, oh, that's right. Was that a taxi or a guy? Right? I woke up today, and all I did was watch the Bucks. I woke up today this morning, and I'm like, wait, did all of that actually happen? I need roommates. I need to go into somebody else's room and be like, hey, did that Bucks thing really happen? Because that's how it felt. Like this was significant. It was real. It was a lot of different things. So let's kind of run through it. I feel like for years now, especially with the increase of the three-point shooting and the heliocentric stuff that I haven't always liked, that I felt like some of the stuff that we see in the regular season, the gap between regular season and the NBA playoffs, it's the biggest gap that we've ever seen. All right. In recent memory, at least, right? And I think this is something I've been talking about for a while. There's just certain things that will happen in a regular season where I go, I don't know that I love that in the playoffs. Doesn't mean I'm right all the time. Certainly, plenty of times you can still be wrong, despite noticing, I think, something that we all agree on, that there is a big difference. But it shouldn't be as different as it looked last night. It shouldn't. In the NFL, one of the things I think that I both love and don't love about the sport is that we can spend all this time talking about it, breaking it all down, who's good, who isn't. And it's like, man, it's actually just limited possessions. The scoring thing's more of a marketing thing than a true reflection of what the score is. And if you have 2 turnovers and the other team doesn't, you're going to lose. That's it. The NHL playoffs every single year, it's like, why is it so different? Oh, goalies, dude. Goalies get hot. Here's the thing. When you watch the NHL playoffs with the intensity of what's happening, you'll get like 2 goals, and then the game winner, a lot of times in those games, is like, oh, it deflected off the back of a guy's leg and then another stick and then off a skate and it went in. And it's like, oh, we're done. We're done. We were the better team. We were done. What I always loved about basketball is that as the series would go on, the talent disparity would show itself. Okay? Basketball, I felt like, told less lies about the results because in a 7-game series where if you don't have 1 or 2 of those top 10 guys, you probably weren't going to figure it out. Now, others could argue that actually makes it a worse product in the playoffs, and I wouldn't tell you were even wrong from it. But again, the gap should not be like this. The gap should not be to the point where you're watching Miami, who all regular season long, I'm like, look, at least last year when I didn't like them, they were the 1 seed. It was daring, and it was wrong. This year wasn't daring, and it's perhaps even more wrong, because now I don't even know what to do with this. If you look at the Jimmy Butler shot at the end of regulation, when it went in, I was like, I wasn't even surprised because of him and what he's done in these last few games, and because of how bad the Milwaukee Bucks have been and had been in Game 5 for so long. To watch them collapse again in the back-to-back playoff game, after watching Game 4 where I was like, you know what? They're up big. They're going to take care of this. They'll be fine. Butler goes for 56. At the end of that one, I'm like a bit of a foot off the gas. I thought Milwaukee was going to smash them last night. Same deal. Up double digits, late. You're like, they'll figure it out. They'll be fine. Look, they can't do what they did in Game 4 because there's no room for error. And it happened again. And it happened in a way with a team that's actually already won an NBA title, which is what makes this so strange. They look scared. I don't like saying that about teams a lot. They were scared to death. It's the only thing that you can look at with what they were trying to do on offense. They had 2 made field goals over 11 minutes of real game time. At 7:09, Drew hits a shot. From that point on, 7:08, 2 shots in regulation, 2 shots in the final 7:08 regulation. They didn't make a field goal the first 4 minutes of regulation, the first 4 minutes of overtime. You want to go back and watch that, how horrified each individual player was about not wanting to have the ball in his hands? It was real. And it's so weird because it's like, wait, how did that team actually win a title 2 years ago? Because you have to go through all those moments of lacking confidence. You have to fight through them. They look like a young team that's really talented that was a high seed, and you're like, oh, they choked. They just weren't ready for it. All the different cliches that we throw out that sometimes are accurate and are sometimes inaccurate. But it usually never happens to a team that's already done the good thing. It's almost all the same guys. It doesn't make any sense. Imagine explaining to your friend who's kind of casually aware of what the NBA is, and maybe he'll watch the finals, or I don't know, had a poster when he was younger. And they would ask you and be like, hey, what's going on? I saw Miami beat Milwaukee. Is Miami good this year? No, dude. They actually were the worst scoring team in the NBA, worst offense in the playoffs. They were missing their best shooter. Well, how did they beat? Wasn't Milwaukee the best team in the league record-wise? Yeah, but they suck. How? How is this possible? How could the worst offense beat the team with the best record? Playoffs, dude. Playoff Jimmy. Built different. Oh, they have Bam. No, he actually sucks now. What about Kyle Lowry? Is he any good? No, but he's battle tested. What about Giannis? That guy had like 50 in a finals game. Yeah, he lost his clutch gene. Well, what else is going on in the East? Well, Boston's good, but everybody's kind of down on them because now Trey is better than Luka. Cleveland had the best defensive players, but they suck too because it's the playoffs, and the Knicks are grittier, and it should be wide open for the Sixers and Embiid, but Simmons and Russillo didn't like them in a sweep. Yeah, but didn't they vote Embiid MVP? Yeah, but they can't be trusted. It would be impossible to explain what we've seen. It doesn't, because again, I run through it all day long. It doesn't make any fucking sense. If Giannis didn't have a title, can you imagine?
Oh my God.
Can you imagine if Durant shot was good from three? Like, everybody wanted Bud fired that playoff season. I don't know what to do with Bud, man. If you type in Mike Budenholzer, the number one Google return is how long is his contract? It's another year, I believe. There's some places out there that say it goes to 25, but more of the reports say it's just next year. There's another thing I was thinking about with the gap between the regular season and the playoffs. Has the combo guard destroyed the point guard, the old school point guard who would watch everything falling down around him going, hey, enough of this shit. Let's run something. Let's get somebody a better look. Let me get a screen up here and get a better angle on an entry pass while you go and seal, or you screen block to block or something. Get Giannis deeper. Like, Giannis didn't want the basketball because he was missing every single free throw last night, as we saw with him throwing it out of bounds and Middleton making an incredible play to save it after the jump ball, after all the other nonsense that happened that they couldn't get right. It's one thing to just not run any kind of offense. It's another thing on the Jimmy Butler tying play where you're like, man, do I want size on the inbounds, which I'm a huge proponent of. If you have Giannis, throw him on the inbounder. If you have another huge person named Brook Lopez, who was, I think, a bit fraudulently involved in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, but hell, I voted for Mobley, and now everybody thinks that's the worst thing ever. You don't have Lopez in the game. I believe they subbed Connaughton in for him, and Budenholzer tried to explain it, but it's like, why wouldn't you want at least a guy standing around the rim as Butler makes what will be historically one of the most absurd shots in NBA playoff history? As bad as that was, it's not even close to as bad with 0.5 left and a timeout to not advance the basketball. But after, it was like, yeah, we needed one there. Not as much depth on that explanation, but he's been around a long time. The longer you go explaining it, the worse it looks, right? Giannis can attest to that. We'll get to his quote in a second. That doesn't make any sense. And on top of it, too, like what led to the jump ball earlier was an inbounds pass where you're throwing it away. And then when they run out the clock in overtime with a Grayson Allen Euro that starts with a 1/10 of a second, you're like, that's probably not going to get off in time. So that timeout, I know that Bud likes to just kind of have the guys go and run. But his best player at that point, look, if Giannis had better marketing, you'd be hearing about how severe this back injury was. There's other players in the league that would definitely, within 48 hours, you'd have a severe medical update. He's going to see a therapist, physical therapist. And I don't know about the other part. Never doubling Jimmy. Never. Like we've always talked about Bud's stubbornness. And when you have that ring, like it covers up, like, because I'll always think, all right, everybody's complaining about this with this coach. I wonder if there was something else that he was trying to do, right? This one felt like he was trying to lose. So I don't have any zags for you on this one. None. I mean, we've had some incredibly weird coaching things that have happened in a very short amount of time that don't. I mean, Quinn Snyder's a terrific coach. He kept Trey on the floor in game 5 for a defensive possession where he got the block on the attempted flop for a charge. You're like, wait, what was going on there? I normally always put it on the players, but I don't know how Bud survives this because it's not the mistakes that the experts see, the other players, the other coaches, a lot of the stuff that we can't see every single night. It's the obvious mistakes that everybody can see. And you're like, what are you guys doing? So in these moments, I always like to remind all of us to kind of go, all right, what does it mean? What are all these things? The best thing is kind of to take a deep breath. Giannis is still going to be really good next year. Milwaukee still has a good team. But this is a bit haunting, right? This is a haunting feeling. I don't know what it means for the rest of the East because I'm telling you, anyone that you meet, whether it's somebody you meet in person or watch on TV or listen to that is definitive, that is certain that they know the outcome of what these playoffs are going to be, I would say, I don't want to say stop listening to them, but I would say they're kind of lying to you. I don't feel good about anybody. Maybe Denver. Do I feel better about Philly now than I did on Sunday? Okay, cool. Maybe that's the play. But what's going to suck for Giannis is that the longer this goes, this wasn't so bad. It takes away all the credit for the ring. But there is some math in there where he's going to start dealing with some stuff again that he was dealing with before, which I thought was far too early. Like, I just don't like it when the guy's like still under 26, 27. It's like, oh, can this guy even win? Sometimes it's true. A lot of times it isn't. But the Giannis quote afterwards where he was asked if the season was a failure, which apparently he was asked the exact same question last year, I guess Coach Bud. I mean, look, it's a failure. You're the 1 seed. You had the best record. You lost to a Miami team that looked like they were going to be a possession away from not even being in the playoffs. So it is a failure. So his answer that's going around right now about it not being a failure, I don't agree with. But I do think there's this moment where when the really bad thing happens to the thing that we thought was good, because there's also a bit of a victory lap. Like, I told you the Bucks weren't any good. Oh, really? Did you pick the Heat? You picked the Heat, did you? I also think because Giannis basically played 2.5 of the 5 games, that'll be forgotten. It'll be forgotten. Like, wait a minute, how did they lose in 5? You're like, well, Giannis was out. I don't know if his back was more banged up. Like I said, I think some American players would already have that message out there. True or not, the message would be out there to kind of protect him a little bit. But I'll give Giannis this, even though I think all of us generally disagree. When you're this good and you're already, you have certain expectations. Losing to Miami in the first round, it's not like, hey, you know what? We had some real personal growth this year. Good stuff. And the quotes being paraded around is like some kind of lesson. The part that I do like for Giannis is that it's really easy in that spot to have said all the right things, even if you didn't mean, right? When the good thing is bad, we like fake shame more so than we like honest pride.